Happy Sunday morning, I guess is what I could say. Marlins trade Jesus Luzardo to the Philadelphia Phillies in exchange for two prospects. I believe it's Starlyn Caba and one more person. Alex, if you want to clarify that, I haven't been able to really check. Okay, yeah, Starlyn Caba and Emaarion Boyd. It is a 2-for-1 package. Luzardo going to the in-division rival Philadelphia Phillies. I think there's different ways to look at this trade. Caba's a pretty good player for the most part. I like Caba. Actually, that's someone who we were looking at a decent chunk during the trade deadline last year. So that's a good acquisition for sure. And then Boyd, I'm not too familiar on him, but I think it's more the optics of trading in division, especially with the Phillies, is what kind of sours this trade a little bit, Carver. But just want to get your thoughts real quick.
Yeah, you're going in division to a team that is already good, and they just stockpile and they keep their top guys. When it first came out by Robert that it was the Phillies, my mind immediately went to Andrew Painter, Gabriel Cones, guys like that are more established players. Especially for a pitcher like Luzardo, who yes has his issues, who yes has his health issues, and everything else that has been up and down in his career, but is a lefty that is highly sought after, that there's 98, 99. Like, you want to get more than this, or just wait till the deadline. But apparently the Marlins thought that this was too good to pass up. Caba, he reminds me of D. Gordon, with maybe a little bit better defense, no power, two contact switch hitter. Probably will stick at shortstop, but won't see him probably till 2027, 2026. Still has basically his whole minor league career ahead of him. And then the other guy, Boyd, is speed and possibly has the ability to stick in center field. That's where they wanted him to be. I'm sure that's where the Marlins will want him to be. Whose offense has a lot of question marks around it, especially in the Department of Power. It's basically nothing. So we'll see what happens with these guys. I think he's probably a little bit further ahead, and when he reaches the majors, maybe 2026. But man, I think that this is a little bit underwhelming for the Marlins. I mean, you do get two guys who could be decent bats, who don't strike out, who hit for contact, they don't hit for power. At least one of them plays really good defense. The other one, jury's still out on if he could stick in center field. Speed should allow him to, but I don't think it's enough for Luzardo. I think they should have waited to the deadline, and to go in division just makes it hurt a little bit more. So this is not good for me. I would give this probably a C grade if at best. They could have done a lot better.
Isaac, I'll go to you. Your thoughts on the trade?
Hey, Kevin. I mean, without doubt, if they were going to trade Luzardo this offseason, before he even reported to certain training, before other teams could get any glimpse at him, they were going to be selling low. You mentioned the season that he had last year. Even the velocity wasn't exactly at 99, 98 either. He was really sitting 96, 97, if I remember correctly. He didn't pitch that often, and when he did, he just did not look like the Luzardo of 2023. He did not look like the game one wildcard starter. So we knew that if they were going to trade him now, which we talked about in the chat, it was going to be selling low. I think that with what they got here, I don't know how the Phillies feel about Kaba. I think it seems pretty sorry, seems pr- not great for Miami, but pretty darn fair considering what a small risk it is for Philadelphia to acquire this starting pitcher. You don't know what you're going to get for it, and it's just 2 more years of club control, and you're getting arguably probably does Caba rank as the number one prospect for Miami now? I think so. An incredible defensive shortstop who, like Carver mentioned, does not strike out at all. Was a number 13th ranked international free agent in 2023, signed for $3 million. So the Phillies obviously think of him pretty highly. It is hit over power at the moment with a ton of projection remaining. He is going to grow into his body a little bit more, I presume. He is going to be 19 for the entire 2025 season. And yeah, he's got his entire minor league career ahead of him. It's gonna be very exciting to follow his development. And I guess yeah, when you think of Luzard, you think of what he's done for this organization. You think of what Miami gave up, which was an excellent at the time Marte. I guess I can see why this would seem underwhelming, but to me personally, I think I like this. If Luzardo goes out and shoves for the next 2 seasons, maybe you look at this with a little regret. But we don't know how Luzardo's gonna look, and you have a phenomenal defensive shortstop who has great bats and ball skills. Yes, it's always a risk as well, but I think Miami feels they did excellent. I think they did okay. And we'll just see how it plays out. But Miami did really get a special prospect in Cabo.
I don't understand. Like, you said everything I said, basically, Isaac. I don't understand why they don't wait to the deadline. Like, you could have at least gotten this at the deadline. You're not going to get any less than this at the deadline if you wait,
Well,
right?
I want
So
I want to step in on that because I spent a lot of time thinking about that particular thing when the Cubs rumors heated up. I was diving into what is like the precedent for other pitchers in this position where you have a couple of years of control, you're on a bad team. It's not a matter of when you're going to get traded. It's a matter of no, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to get traded right here. This is a guy that he does have a history of elbow issues, even though the back injury is what ultimately did him in last year. He also had another elbow issue again. He had a minor forearm strain that caused him to miss a few weeks. He's had Tommy John in the past. You can just look around the league. A few days ago, Patrick Sandoval signs a free agent deal with the Red Sox. He's a guy that, like, at this time 6 months ago, he was a very similar asset, you could say, as Luzardo on the Angels. He blows out his elbow. It turns out that because he's going to miss most of the next year, they end up just cutting him instead of paying him to rehab, and they get nothing in return for him. Now, like, going through the other like comparables, there really weren't a ton that I felt were like a great comparison to him in terms of all that many cautionary tales of this. At the same time, when they're so dead set on the fact that they were going to deal him, it was the worst kept secret possible. In fact, it was I was surprised to see him like out in the community a few days ago for holiday activities because you felt like he could go at any minute. I didn't know how he was going to handle that. It was just incredibly awkward because they went through the same song and dance last offseason because of how the conversations were going even midway through last season when it was assumed that he was going to be traded at the deadline. He just wasn't healthy enough to get moved right then. So it stinks because they considered this a year ago, and undoubtedly a year ago they would have gotten a lot more in return because he had a full year of control extra. He was coming off a better year, and they did have those negotiations last year with several teams during the offseason. So that's kind of what stings, where you look back on it, and I think a lot of us were of the opinion that it would have been really distasteful to move him at this time a year ago, coming off a playoff berth, and all that he accomplished individually. So there was just really no way of winning here unless there's that little scenario that he pitches as well as ever the first half of this upcoming season and he's fully healthy. Then he gets dealt, and I absolutely agree that they would have gotten more in return of that. A lot of this just comes down to the fact that pitchers are handled a lot differently than position players. Their value can fluctuate so rapidly that in a way that I don't think we always really think about, but it does. Like certainly was significant upside to holding on to him, and certainly from a perception standpoint, this is awful. This team going into next year, it's hard to think of another team in Marlins history, assuming they don't make any significant additions, that goes into a year with like so little chance of being good. But I understand it from both sides. If they feel like they have a couple guys that they're getting in return, at least one that they feel has a chance to be an everyday player in the not too distant future.
I was just gonna say too, like, what I guess it doesn't matter, and they don't care. Obviously, they don't care. But who is now? What does this rotation now look like without Luzardo? I mean, man, like there isn't much, as we know, there isn't much major league ready, and not much at all that they're going to rush at all to pitch this year in the minors. So I don't know. I think this looks pretty poor. I mean, I think this is definitely shaping up to be a 100-loss team, maybe worse than 1998.
Yeah. As of now, I mean, you hope everything goes smoothly with Sandy, which I believe it will, from what I've understood. You definitely have Ryan Weathers ready. You have Edward Cabrera ready. I'm not going to mention Braxton Garrett yet because, like we've talked about before, I don't know what the situation is with him right now. But I hope that he's in there as well. And then you're going to have to depend on Valente Bellozos and I'm sure a couple more minor league signings will be made. I did make the prediction on our last unfiltered episode. Adam Mazer will break camp in the Marlins rotation. That definitely looks a little bit better now. Max Peter Bendix is very adamant about Max Meyer being a starting pitcher. I think it's going to be basically open tryout the first half of the season. It's going to be all these guys, aside from Weathers and Sandy, of course, and the other veterans, quote unquote veterans. But yeah, a lot of young guys are going to have their opportunity to stick in this rotation and show what they got. And if they don't like it, they can either go to the bullpen or Marlins will move on. But yeah, those are the guys right now. So if they thought that they were going to sign someone to help with the innings, I think that's definitely true now because they cannot go into April. Like I'll give them most of spring training, find someone, find a player that was caught from a contender, whatever it may be. But they need to get some help with these innings because you cannot count on Weathers to give you 160, 170. You cannot
Right. And
count.
what's going on with Braxton? Is Sandy all the way back? What's going on with
Right.
Yuri? Like, there's so many question marks there. And the thing is, like, even with the guys that you just mentioned, Isaac, the rotation is and pitching is still lining up to be better than the offense, even with the loss of Luzardo. Like, this lineup literally could be in AAA, almost every player. Like, this is going to be I hope Marlins fans are ready for at least 100 losses. And not just being realistic.
Yeah.
And I think another stressful part too is just the type of player they traded for. You know, like we saw them trade already for like these three prospects, all of them very similar. And I know Caba's I think a little bit different in terms of just his defense, but it is a little bit. You know, you're asking yourself, you have so much of the same profile now. What are you gonna do? You know, like Cerna, Acosta, Vargas, Caba, and now this Emaarion Boyd guy who isn't very good. No offense. I mean, he has a lot of speed, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a little stressful. I wish it would go after a different kind of profile in these trades, kind of like what we would have seen with like an Owen Casey, for example. But it is what it is. They traded Luzardo, and I think it's a fine return. I hate that he went to the Phillies. I think trading in division, I get you play them less, but it is not good to see that you're going in division with this trade, especially with the Phillies of all teams.
Right.
And the thing is, Kevin, like anything can happen with these players, but in January they're going to bring in several more players with that same kind of profile.
Right. I mean, I don't think they're attacking. I mean, maybe they are because they know that if, let's say, they do become redundant, they can flip them again if when they are competitive. But I also think they are going for best player available, and they're not going to go for a different player that's the same as their draft strategy. They're not going to target a specific need with these prospects. I think they are just going for best player and available, and I assume that Painter wasn't available, the other Rincones wasn't available. Cabo was best player available, and in that case, you don't pass on him just because you have, frickin' Acosta. So no, I don't have that big of an issue. I do have more of an issue in trading within the division. But I also find the argument, no, why should you cut out someone else just because they're there? That lowers shrinks the market a bit. So I just it's hard to see him going to the Phillies because
Yeah.
this is a team that eliminated you in the postseason. They
Uh-huh.
lately, at least like in 2020, 2021, the Marlins had their number for a while, but that is not going to be the case anytime soon. That was not the case last year. And the Phillies hadn't really made a big move quite yet. They made a few with Romano, and they had Kepler, but this is their big move for now, I think. I still think they have another one in the chambers. But yeah, it is tough to significantly help your heated division rival so much at the major league
Hmm.
level when you don't even know what you're going to get for a very long time. And that's what makes it a little bit of a tough pill to swallow. But it's business. This happens every single off season, stuff like this. But we shall see. If I remember, I think it was Kim that had a big issue in trading within the division that she didn't want to trade Adam Duvall.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm glad.
It's just significant of what I said earlier. Like, they don't care. Yes, what you said and I said at the beginning, Isaac, is what we all would think. Is that you hate to see your heated division rival get better, and you're literally making them better. As long as Luzardo is healthy, he's gonna pitch well. Like, as long as he's been healthy since his days in the upper minors, where he was struggling a bit with control and command. Since he's figured that out with Mel, like especially most of the way, I guess I should say, he has been damn good. And if he is healthy for the Phillies, he will be good. Yeah,
Well,
even pitching in that park, I think he's going to be good if he's healthy. So
well,
that guy makes your team better. And the Marlins made the Phillies better today, right? And that sucks. But it's significant of the fact that they don't care. They don't care about the next 3 to 4, maybe even 5 years. They don't care about competing at the major league level. They're not going to, very likely,
Yeah.
unless a lot of these prospects get here quickly. They're not going to compete. And this year is going to be significant of that in a lot of different ways. This kind of just puts the cherry on top of it. This year, like I said, I don't want to keep harping on it, and we hope for the best. But this year we're going to see a lot of young players. Let's just say that. We'll leave it at that.
no. I don't know if it's a lock that if he's healthy, he pitches well. I know he has pitched well the last, not last year, but 2023, 2022. But you remember how bad he was when he first got here, and he was healthy. You look at how bad he wasn't healthy last year, but he was pretty bad on the mound last year. And if this was just a question of him being healthy, then Miami probably would have gotten a little bit more. But I think everyone knows that at this point, has Miami squeezed out the best of Luzardo? I certainly hope not. He's an excellent kid who is a great pitcher. But have we seen the best of Luzardo in his career? He's very young still, but still, he did not pitch great, and there's some concern with the way he threw last year, and it wasn't just injury based. So, I
A
think it
lot
was
of
a
it's based on injury, but we can agree to disagree on
sure.
that
A
fact.
lot of it is sure, but like I said, if it was only an injury issue, maybe Miami can get more. But
I do.
Hold up.
Yeah,
Sorry to do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
McIntosh is
Paul
what?
also in the
McIntosh
deal.
going to Philly.
He's always going to Philly.
Oh no! From the
Yeah,
block? Are you
that's too
kidding,
far. That's too
Kevin?
far.
No! Are
Yeah,
you
Wow.
now it's definitely
serious?
an overpay.
That's the successor to JT in Philly. Yeah,
Wow.
people
Wow.
that have been following us for a while know that we were big fans of PMac from the very beginning of his pro career. Things have tailed off quite a bit to this point where he's not I would not say that he has considerable value in this deal, but I'm good to see if this means that he has a slightly higher likelihood of getting a cup of coffee in the majors after being an undrafted free agent. That's awesome
Oh
for
yeah.
him.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
PMac
pretty bad.
was the cherry on top. They weren't going to do it unless
Yeah, Dave
PMac was
Dombrowski
involved.
said, if you don't throw in Paul McIntosh, I don't want Luzardo.
Hey, shout out to PMac. That's a great landing spot.
Hell yeah! Shout out to Dave Dombrowski. You got a great one right
That's
there.
insane.
Yeah, I do
He's
want
a great guy.
I do want to switch tones briefly because we're not that far removed from the Jake Berger trade, which was very unpopular, even if it was on a smaller scale. I have a friend that I've known for at least 10 years now, and it's been a big Marlins fan. And after the Berger, I mean, he was unhappy after the Rise trade in May, but again after the Berger trade, gave me this like really long message. And he's not the only one. Like as someone that runs our site, you see a lot of these big rants after these unpopular deals during the Bendix era about people that have been lifetime Marlins fans or hardcore fans, and they say, this is the final straw. I'm done after this. And in 99% of cases, they don't mean it. They mean they're just really, really upset by something and they want to vent about it. And I got to understand it. And so this one is just a couple weeks away from saying he's completely out on the Marlins. He doesn't want to talk about them ever again. And I know that in the back of his mind, you look for any excuse if you're a longtime fan to get hooked again and to care, some reason to care. And I get another message from him like 3 minutes ago that begins in all caps with "fuck this org," and then it goes on for a couple different paragraphs about this Luzardo deal, trading to the Phillies. So I got to sympathize with that. We're going to follow
Dude,
this team and
let him
cover this
write
team
a
no matter what. But I understand that there are fans out there that have really had a rough year in trying to get interested in this team because it's one unpopular move
Right.
after another. They don't care about the value of the prospects because it
right.
just brings them farther and farther and farther away from like seeing a scenario where it actually all comes together. So that's just one example. Shout out to Mario. I hope he's going to get through it. I'm sure I'm
Let's
going to
let him
hear
write a
from him
fan
again.
article on the site.
But yeah, this is it's that to go back to what Carver mentioned. They really don't care about the PR side of this and the perception
Right.
side of it. If they feel that further down the road, it gives them a better chance of actually connecting all the dots and making this work right now. And in the meantime, it's really painful. I do not know. I do not know how this team is going to be like profitable locally in the meantime. It's just such an unattractive product that even for those
Yeah.
that have invested so many years and even multiple generations into following this team, they're just not giving you any reason to care at this point.
Let me just call credence to one other thing that kind of goes into what Eli was just saying about the PR side.
Oops.
Never mind off the field or on the field. Look at what Luzardo was off the field, and this was one of the greatest guys in the community that you could have ever gotten. South Florida kid, Douglas High School. After Douglas, he was at every single memorial, every single thing that they did after that horrible event. He was there doing it with them. I think the Marlins had like just got back. Like it was like obviously they were just getting back into camp when it was happening in February. He was still there doing all of it. Like that guy, and even since then, like every one of these community events that the Marlins put on, he's right there at it. Loves the community, loves South Florida, loves South Florida, is from here. You're gonna miss that too. You're not gonna see him around anymore at these, and that's gonna be tough for people that are dependent on the Marlins Foundation and everything that they do. That guy was a champion in the community. So They'll miss that too. I know that that's probably something that fans today we're only going to look at the on-field stuff, which is understandable, but remember that as well. This guy's a great dude off the field.
Yeah,
Well, and you talked to that, and he was literally at the Christmas Drive event this week at the stadium. So it just
yes.
shows how much he does for the community.
Yeah, and like Carver said, we will go more in depth on the baseball trade. But with these last two significant trades with Berger and Luzardo, the Marlins have traded easily their most marketable position player and pitcher, for all the reasons that Carver mentioned. And so, like I said, we will dive deep into what this means for the Marlins system and going forward. But really, like I know I'm just beating a dead bush here, but look at what the Marlins are going to have on the field. To who are they going to have at Fan Fest as their like main players? Because Luzardo was the main guy in the rotation. I guess Sandy's coming back, so that's good. Berger was definitely that guy on the position player side. And yeah, like Eli said, they really don't care. And I guess no ownership group does care. You're not supposed to care what the fans want or think because then you become one of them. Jeez. But yeah, it's I guess it's good to see that they don't care, but at the same time, I think it would benefit them to maybe keep someone so someone so fans can attend the first half of Major League home
Right.
games because
That's what I'm saying. Like,
um
who do you put on a billboard? Like, who do you put on a program at the stadium? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you keep fans interested in this team? Yes, rebuilds are hard. We've been through them before. We know that rebuilds are very hard to go through. But this team has been rebuilding for so long that fans are just like, okay, this is just the Marlins again. Is probably what the consensus opinion is. At least among casual fans. How do you keep people interested? How do you stay afloat? How do you continue to make money? How does Bruce Sherman continue to make money until these prospects that he hopes get here? It's going to be very difficult. And the long term future of the Marlins, I don't even know if they can survive long enough from a logistical standpoint to realize some of these prospects that are going to be 27, 28, 20, maybe 2029. This is an interesting position. Obviously, all rebuilds are tough, but this is going to be especially hard for the Marlins, I think.
Yeah. So anything else from you guys before we
Yeah,
wrap this up?
I just want to add we got breaking confirmation from the trade that this is going to happen. It's going to be made official today.
yes.
And so Peter Bendix will speak to us and the rest of the media later today. So we'll have more from that.
Alrighty, sounds good then. I think we'll wrap it up here. I think just a quick reaction, and obviously we'll do Fish on First Live this week to talk about the trade. I'm assuming, and we'll have a new top 30 again. So hopefully, it's the last one for a while. But yeah, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll get more from Peter. From obviously we'll see. Just everything unfold a little bit more. Go into a deeper dive. I'm sure Carver will have an article talking about these two guys in the trade. So, yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and as always, go Fish.